Right now, as you listen to this, you're moving faster than a jetliner. At the equator, Earth spins at over 1,000 miles per hour, and you don't feel a thing. The air moves with you. The oceans move with you. The entire world shares the same silent momentum. But imagine that, in a single breath, it stops. Not gradually. Not over days or hours. Instantly. The ground beneath your feet locks in place. The planet freezes mid-spin. And everything not bolted to bedrock keeps moving. At 1,000 miles per hour, the air becomes a wall of destruction. Supersonic winds rip across continents, flattening cities in seconds. Skyscrapers shear apart like sandcastles. Forests are uprooted and hurled across landscapes. The oceans do not politely settle. They surge eastward, climbing over coastlines and towering walls of water, swallowing entire regions before anyone can even process what's happening. People, vehicles, buildings, anything not anchored deep into Earth's crust is swept away, in a single, violent sweep. The planet doesn't explode. It doesn't crack open. It simply reminds everything on its surface that motion doesn't vanish just because the ground stops. Within minutes, the worst of the winds begin to calm. The atmosphere, dragged violently forward, begins to redistribute. But the world that remains is unrecognizable. And then comes the silence. Earth is no longer spinning. One side now faces the sun constantly. The other is turned away in permanent darkness. On the sunlit side, the sky never changes. The sun hangs fixed in place, day without end. At first, it feels like a long afternoon. Then the heat begins to build. Without rotation, there is no cycle to cool the surface. Temperatures climb relentlessly. Oceans on this side begin to steam. Rivers shrink. Soil cracks. What survived the initial winds now faces relentless radiation and rising heat that pushes beyond anything humanity has endured. Across the horizon, at the boundary between light and dark, storms rage. The atmosphere, desperately trying to balance extremes, churns in colossal systems that never move, never dissipate. Permanent hurricanes grind across the twilight line, fed by boiling heat on one side and frozen air on the other. Because on the dark side, the opposite fate unfolds. There, the sun never rises again. The temperature plummets. First, it feels like an endless winter night. Then colder, and colder still. Oceans begin to freeze from the surface downward, forming expanding sheets of ice miles thick. The air itself grows heavy and brittle. Snow falls and never melts. Entire continents vanish beneath darkness and frost. In time, much of the atmosphere begins to collapse toward the frozen side, condensing and falling as snow. The breathable air thins unevenly across the globe. Survival becomes a question of geography, but Earth's spin does more than create day and night. It shapes our planet in ways we rarely consider. The rotation causes a bulge at the equator, a subtle outward swell created by centrifugal force. When the spinning stops, that force disappears. The oceans, once pulled slightly outward, begin migrating toward the poles. Slowly, unimaginably. Slowly compared to the first chaos, water drains away from equatorial regions. Vast new landmasses emerge where seas once shimmered. Meanwhile, polar regions drown beneath migrating oceans, forming two colossal superseas at the top and bottom of the planet. Coastlines redraw themselves. Continents reshape. The map of Earth becomes alien. And the magnetic field, generated in part by the dynamics of Earth's rotating core, begins to weaken over time. Without its steady spin contributing to internal motion, the protective shield around our world may falter. Solar radiation intensifies at the surface. The sunlit hemisphere becomes even more hostile, while the frozen side remains locked in darkness. Human survival narrows to a thin ring between extremes, a band of perpetual twilight, where temperatures might remain barely tolerable. There, along that shifting border, remnants of civilization could attempt to adapt. Not under rising suns or starry nights, but beneath a sky forever caught in between. No more time zones. No more dawn breaking over mountains. No more sunsets fading into memory. Just one endless day. One endless night. and a quiet reminder that the most ordinary thing in our lives, the simple rising and setting of the sun, is powered by a planetary motion so immense, so perfectly balanced that we forget it's happening at all until it doesn't. Because Earth has always been spinning, and if it ever stopped, the world wouldn't end in fire or explosion. It would end in stillness.